Hey Ian,
Yeah.
have you ever butt chugged anything?
Hey, you know what?
What?
I think that's a fair question.
I mean, what was that thing you asked me you opened with a while ago? I forget what
uh,
it was, but you opened with something as equally about have you ever been turned on by the sight of your own penis? I think you asked me.
yeah, the weird thing is I think in both cases that implies that you have. So I think just
Well, no,
asking the
actually.
question.
To be clear, no, I've never butt chugged. I mean, I've had suppository medications, but that's
Sure.
not butt
Yeah, that's
chugging.
different.
I've never
Uh
stuck a funnel in my butt and yeah.
well, as a recovering alcoholic, I think it's a fair question. Um And I lived in a particular, the school that I went to, Colorado, weirdly, the state that I live in, Denver is high up on the list of incidences of alcoholism.
Okay.
Second, but the number one in the country is San Francisco, which is another place where I lived.
Okay.
The University of Colorado in Boulder is considered a party school.
So no
And
wonder you ended up an alcoholic. Jesus
Right.
Christ.
Well, I mean, I don't believe, outside circumstances being what they are, I'm sure there's a lot of people in Colorado who are,
Wait,
who
was
have
that
different,
harsh?
different backgrounds. But, it's a very strange thing. Many of the people that I know personally, many people who are friends of mine have DUIs, which are either, driving while intoxicated or driving under the influence or whatever. There's like a culture of it. I said here in Colorado. I'm not in Colorado. I'm in New York. But anyway, back to the butt chugging question. Growing up in Colorado, going to college in Colorado State University, a lot of partying. I became acquainted with Keystone Light early on, and were surrounded by people who were pledging to frats, and we're like,
So
a lot of people are surprised
that.
that I became a part of that community.
So have
here's
you experienced butt chugging before?
I have not experienced butt chugging.
Okay.
There's something not indelicate, undignified about the position, the physical position you have to get into in order to.
Well, that depends entirely on who you're talking to.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. For me, there's a number of problems. Yeah, I'm certainly curious in the way that
Yeah.
A person might be curious what heroin feels like.
Well, yeah, my understanding is that, the reason why suppositories are a thing is because they get into the bloodstream a lot quicker that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the undignified nature of it. Presumably, unless you're solo butt chugging, and I gotta think, if you're solo butt chugging, there's other you've got some other considerations that you need to focus on.
I'm just picturing like a lonely middle-aged man in like a dimly lit, like dingy room, just sticking a funnel in his butt.
So presumably there's other people in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Are they used to and familiar with me sticking things in my butt in order to get drunk?
I mean, some of the people I used to hang out with, I wouldn't be surprised if they did that.
I know people that I'm like, they probably did that, but I just can't fathom the social situation where that would be a thing. I'm kind of working through my relationship with butt chugging in this conversation.
I mean, beyond the realm of like frat parties, I can't think of anything either.
Yeah, and again, who's gonna do that at a party?
I think the Jackass Boys did it, or Steve-O gave himself an enema or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. I vaguely recall that.
And generally speaking, you'd probably want to stay away. Those movies are like a guidebook of things not to do.
They're making another one, and I, for one, am very excited. I love that stuff.
I think there is some cultural redeeming value to those kinds of things. I think it's kind of fascinating. Another problem I have with it is just the name. You know, if you want me to do something, you call it like Back Alley Sommelier or...
So just make it sound a little fancier if I want to pique your interest. It's very
classy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well...
It's like it's it's like calling a cheeseburger like your double Whopper with cheese like the
Royale with cheese,
the sweaty and uncomfortable. You know, like, yes, I understand that may be the end result of the double Whopper with cheese, but that's not selling it to me as a thing.
So okay.
And the other thing that I never like that I don't get is the objective of doing it is to get drunk faster.
Yeah, see, I don't. If I'm downing booze, I don't take very long to get drunk. It's not like, something I want to expedite.
What time am I saving that I'm going to put towards? Like, am I so busy that my drunken escapade needs to I need to like fit it in a certain slot?
Quick, you're about to get on the bus and head to the club or something, so you need to quickly.
It's a part of my GTD approach is. Yeah.
How does it work mechanically though, too? Because I'm sure you do it and then you stand up and then a bunch of booze just squirts out of your butt, right? Like,
yeah. You water your legs.
Yeah. Anyway, hi everybody.
You go to the bathroom. Hi everybody. Yeah, I guess that would. There was a line probably about 3 minutes ago.
Probably, but
or when we started talking.
Yeah.
That we rapidly jumped over. Hi everybody. Welcome to the podcast of the nerds. I'm Ian.
And my name is Jack. Ian, what are we up to today?
So it's been over a month since we did this and we decided to open with butt chugging.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It was literally off the cuff too. Like just boom.
Yeah, Jack and I often now have conversations that one or the both of us go, yeah, we should probably talk about this on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's either butt chugging or like previous romantic relationships that we've had and our indecisiveness and low self-esteem.
There have been times when we've been scripting and we finish the script and then we start chatting and then you're like, wait, we should just press record and finish this conversation. Yeah. So we do. Yeah,
we've talked about recording the podcast more as packages where we just kind of fire up and record when we're having conversations at certain times and then kind of edit it together so things are a little bit more organic, but we have yet to do that. And the other thing too is whenever you Lonnie and I have talked about this a number of times. When you're self-employed or when you're a creative, I hate the term, but it's for lack of a better, like a busker or someone who records, just someone who makes content of any kind. There's you fall into this compulsion of trying to turn every part of your life into content.
Yeah.
And Jack, sometimes I just want to have a private conversation with you about butt chugging. I don't want to air that.
I feel you, buddy. I feel you.
What are we talking about today?
So today on the podcast, we're going to have a little bit of a chat about a film that we watched. One of your favorites, romantic comedies, Don Juan DeMarco.
I don't want to set the bar too high. I think that is not one of my favorite films or comedies. I think one of the reasons we all had a good experience with this movie, it does some things interesting.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we had a good experience with this movie is I think I set the bar low enough.
Well, That's the thing, yeah, because before we watched it, you literally said, "Oh, it's a bad movie," and then when I watched it, I wouldn't call that bad. It's not great, but it's not
silly,
bad.
Not a great movie. Light. I don't think I ever did it. I don't know if I used the word bad.
I'm
did I
sure
use the word
you did.
bad?
I'm sure you called it bad. I'm sure you did, but I appreciate that because you did set a very, very low bar
Right.
that it far exceeded.
Yeah. It does certain things or has a perspective on certain things that I found interesting and relevant to conversations that you and I have had that we'll get into.
Right.
You and I are just so incredibly similar in terms of, I feel like, kind of our hearts and the way we relate to things and our ambitions and all of that. And I thought that it's just I'm like 11 years on. I have 11 more years of mistakes. And I think those are, they're a fiery training ground or they're a cycle. They're one or the other, right? Like, there's something you're stuck in, or there's something you learned from and moved past. And hopefully, I've moved past a lot of those. But like I said, I think most of the time that's really the only difference. And so there was something about Don Juan that I thought you would enjoy that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But Jack, why have we? Oh, and then of course we're going to return to "Here Is Gone" by Terri Botta. Yes. I can't believe it's been a month and a half. We're like 3 chapters from the end.
Yeah, we'll get there, friends. We will.
Yeah. I might do. I think there are 2 epilogues that I may do. We may do as one extended reading. I don't know how long they are, but we'll just have to wait and see. So, Jack, where the hell have we been, and why have we not done a podcast in a month and a half?
That's quite a nuanced answer, my friend. I mean, I believe last week you had a power outage, right?
Yeah, it's been kind of one thing after another. I mean, that explained one day of why we didn't.
Well, that's the thing.
Record.
I mean, the majority of it is me being sick and going to hospital and having surgery. I believe the last time we did this, I was waiting to go in for surgery. I think, to recap that, there isn't really a lot to say to explain the tail end of that ordeal, but I had the surgery. It was fine. I had some pain issues afterwards. I had one night back in hospital because I got really, really sore, but here we are like over a month later and I'm pretty much fine. I'm doing okay.
Yeah. Man, is momentum precious and incredibly difficult to generate. It's one of my biggest issues with the channel and creating content and episode guides. The other thing that happened for me was Into the Woods. Into the Woods was a beast. It was It was an episode, like I said in the intro to the video, it was an episode that, someone asked the question. So I'm not going to talk very much about that video. I think I need to do a channel news video sometime soon, do a coffee video. But it had an unusual intro, and one of the things was I talked about was questions that I've gotten from people over and over and over again. And the answer to one of those questions that I didn't put on screen because I thought it was interesting to do it that way, was Seeing Red, The Body, and Into the Woods. And
one of those things is not like the others.
Well, yeah, I think there's an argument to be made that none of those things are like each other.
Yeah,
but the question was, what episodes of the show are you have you been most apprehensive about?
Oh, yeah.
Writing about? I think The Body is going to be a challenge because it's so fundamental to the personal experience that, and the effectiveness of the art is so substantial for everyone. It's not a subtle thing.
And it's also a subjective thing too. Like I mean, it all is, but like when you watch the body, you often relate it to your own experiences. Like we do with all art, but I think it's much more apparent with the body, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a departure that I think its functions and intent are not a mystery. You know, when she's speaking to the EMT and Joss filmed it cutting the top of the EMT's head off so you couldn't see his eyes, that I think what's going on there is pretty emotionally, what that's creating is pretty self-evident. You know, that idea of it's so disconcerting, it's so abstract that the reflection of the experience that she's having in that moment of how even any conversation is abstract and abnormal and all of that. I think that is all there, and there's so much of it. If I were to do sort of what I did with Restless, which is like Restless, it makes a ton of sense because everything's a mystery, everything's a puzzle, everything's a symbol. But to go sort of shot by shot through the body, and every shot in the body is, until we get to the later stories, is calculated and specific,
very
and designed,
specific,
and,
very intentional.
Yeah. And I think that it wouldn't be fun. You know, it's not going to be fun. So what to say about the body is a challenge for me that I'm not looking forward to dealing with. Seeing Red obviously has the...
it's such a contentious episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And talking about sexual assault or any of that...
it's difficult.
And the use of it as a way of developing a character that is ancillary to the main character and, you know, this, that, and the other thing is, let alone that's not even talking about Tara and Willow and the bury your gaze trope. Like, holy cow, there's so many incendiary things to that. But, and the last one was Into the Woods. Because Into the Woods, because I hate the episode so much and I just don't like focusing on the negative. Like, I have a blissfully selective memory where if I have a deeply confronting or painful conversation or whatever, about a day or two later, I can't remember what the specifics of the conversation, just the broad generalizations. And so I just am that way about confrontation and negative things and anger and frustration and whatever. And that episode creates so much frustration for me in the way the relationships play out and are written, and that's the content of the video. That, man, was I not looking forward to it. And I'm such a slow writer and I spend so much time digesting all the things that I want to say.
And you were agonizing over this one more than you normally do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I'm on a very, like, the pandemic, and I'm going full time. I've never been quick, right? I think that consecutively, the best I did was sometime in season 2 or 3. This is when I was working 50, 60 hours a week at my main job. And then on the weekends, I would come in, watch an episode, write the entire script, record it by that evening, and the next day I would edit all day and publish it around 1 or 2 in the morning. And then I would go back to work Monday and go through the whole thing.
I think taking your time the way you do, I think it allows you to flesh out better and to ruminate on things.
Absolutely, the writing is higher quality now. There's good stuff.
Sure. Oh, yeah. That's why I started watching. There's lots of good stuff.
I think it's more infused with my own perspective and less of Mark's and less of just kind of broad generalizations. Like, I'm more specific about how I feel about the episodes. But yeah, but the other thing too is I don't remember how many in a row it was. Maybe I strung together 5 videos consecutive weekends in a row, or 4, whatever it was, before I burned out and then didn't publish a video for 3 months. Those videos were, 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah,
this
now
was
you're doing 40-minute epics.
Densely edited.
Yeah.
They're not all going to be that way, but I just saw some complaints on the YouTube comments as usual, which is to be expected because it's every time.
Yeah.
Of, man, I wish he published more often, and man, I wish this, that, and the other thing. It's like, yeah, I do too.
Every time someone says that, says that, I just think, do you want him to half-ass stuff so he can just feed it to you? Like, come on. Just, art takes time.
Well, I think I could go faster, but I also don't think that's the point. Oh, and there was another comment. I didn't mean to talk this much about the videos, but there was another comment. A guy said, I don't really believe this, but a part of me wonders is if he's just stringing out the episodes to milk this for the money he can, so he doesn't run out of content to review.
If
and we all move on.
If you don't publish a video, you don't get money.
Yeah, he doesn't really understand that. Well, I mean, Patreon's an exception.
Sure.
Patreon is an exception, and I do live on Patreon.
Yeah.
The truth is, I've absolutely considered that. I've absolutely thought, yeah, the videos are going to run out at some point. And it's funny. I was about to say the entire audience has been built around it. That's not true. The about 45-50% of the subscribers on my channel came from the toolbox fallacy.
Right. Yeah, that was a big jump.
Huge. But the regular video-to-video followers are there for Buffy and Angel.
Actually, right? I was looking at my Facebook memories this morning, and on this day, like I think 2 or 3 years ago, you made a post about how you had just reached 20,000 subs, and now you're at like almost 70,000.
Yeah. But I mean, a part of me has thought, as the seasons have rolled on, what am I going to do when I run out of episodes to talk about? I mean, we've had that discussion a lot about how Buffy's finite, so we need to start branching out. But I mean, like, no matter what, there's people who are only here for Buffy, and when I move on to something else, Star Trek or Avatar or The Good Place or whatever, or write my own content, which is the ultimate goal, and tell my own stories, and more Nerd Chipper, and building an audience around Nerd Chipper and the Toolbox, not returning to Nerd Chipper, but that style of content that I was creating. Yeah,
more original content. Well, I mean, what you're doing now is
personal storytelling. Yeah. Personal storytelling. I watched Bo Burnham's Inside.
Me too. Oh, that hit me like a freaking sledgehammer. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was spectacular. But that guerrilla style content creation, that movie it's
inspiring.
Like, it's wonderful.
From a creative standpoint, the fact that he did it himself in a little room, like, to me, that's so... I mean, don't get me wrong, the guy had money for good equipment, sure, but he still did it himself.
He's got a nice lighting rig and a few good cameras. Yeah. But again, he's doing all of that himself. I think... to talk about equipment in that is the toolbox fallacy.
Oh, of course,
he did it. He had nice equipment. I mean, however,
yes, but nice equipment does help like a hell of a lot.
It does, but
but it's not the point. I get it.
I think that's counterbalanced by the fact that he did all that himself.
Okay,
so soloing, the amount of time for those who don't know, Bo Burnham is a musical comedian, and his latest special he did over the course of a year in an apartment by himself. And it was, essentially about the pandemic, but the songs were about, sort of his journey through a year of quarantine. And it's song, interlude, song, interlude, song, interlude. Some of it is very dark. So a lot of it is incredibly melancholy.
Very dark, and there's some parts that I would describe as raw too. Like there was stuff that wasn't an act, if you know what I mean.
Or it was, and it was a great one.
Yeah,
because
that's
it didn't feel that way. But what that piece was 13 YouTube videos that were just bridged together.
Yeah.
You know, the way what I saw while I was watching that was, how would I shoot that? How would I put that together? How would I shoot that?
I was thinking along those lines too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just he sold it differently. Rather than putting it on YouTube, he can make more money, obviously, because name and Netflix and all of that stuff. So he packaged it a certain way and put it on Netflix.
I went into it not really knowing what it was gonna be about, and I heard a lot of people saying how good it was, but I knew nothing about it. And it was on a day that I was feeling like shit. I was cold, tired, so I turned off the lights. First I ordered a pizza, which I never eat pizza because I'm a type 2 diabetic, but that day I didn't care. So I ordered a pizza, I got into bed under a blanket, I started watching it, and I'm like, this is not how Bo Burnham would want me to watch this. He would expect me to watch it like this, but he wouldn't want me to, because I was just like, oh, I feel so seen.
Well, it's been a while since I... You know, and for me, it's the jokes there are a lot of good jokes. There's a lot that I found maybe went on a little bit too long, whatever. Not really the point. The point was about just making stuff, you know, and the manner in which he went and made that and assembled everything and edited it himself and all of that. And parts of it were, I think it actually would have been better served as a series of YouTube videos than where they can each have their own peak, their own arc, all of that, as opposed to the sort of off sections that kind of existed. But regardless, it's just so inspiring, the work of doing the work, and especially of that quality and that artistic composition.
Like, even though he did it himself in his apartment, it's top notch. Like, it's really good.
Yeah. And he does it all with light. Light and angles. But the quality of the lighting setups that he achieved for every one of the shots is incredible. But anyway, I watched that and I thought about, I've had an idea for a series of YouTube videos that are all stories for a long time that I haven't picked up yet, you know? So getting back to that comment and the guy who said maybe he's just stringing this out to make money. Here's the thing. The way that I write the videos now is miserable. It's a long, extended process of anxiety and self-torture, and then all the work gets done in a big chunk where, I sort of digest and everything comes out all at the same time. That was an unfortunate pooping metaphor, and I didn't mean to go there. But procrastination for me is not laziness. It's pure anxiety and fear of failure, and this is going to be horrible, and I don't have anything good to say about this, and just the wall, beating your head against the wall over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and then you break through it, and the work comes out. That's not fun.
No.
And I would rather be loving every minute of this process and getting through it in a regular and faster way, because I'd rather make more money from you get a surge of ad revenue when you publish, because you get the biggest hit, and the ad revenue sort of clusters on big hits. You don't make a lot of money as it dribbles in. So 100,000 hits in a day will make more than 100,000 hits over the course of a year.
Of course, that just makes sense. Yeah.
So publishing more often it means that you're making more money. Your audience is growing faster. You get more subscribers. I get subscribers every time I publish.
Yeah.
I don't get any in the off periods when I'm beating my head against the wall, frustrated and angry over a particular script. And not only that, but once Buffy's done, I get to talk about other stuff. I get to talk about, I do like other things.
Only
besides
like
Buffy and Angel.
2.5 seasons to go.
I know. This was 10 years. I'm rewatching The Good Place. I'm on season 3, and I'm like, every single episode of this show begs for an episode guide, taking the concepts and blowing them out and talking about why the specific passages from the texts. I'm on the episode about determinism, but I learned from adding in Firefly, there's only so much bandwidth that I have to do this. Maybe things will be different now that quarantine is coming to an end. But we'll see. Anyway, let's move on from there. I can't find my way out of talking about this topic, and I've been trying for the last 10 minutes. So, Jack, we watched Don Juan. Can you tell us a little bit about Don Juan?
Don Juan DeMarco, from 1994, starring...
So it's in 1994.
Yeah, I was just a young kid watching Power Rangers when this came out.
This is 26 years ago, 27 years ago.
And funnily enough, I knew nothing about it. Like, I hadn't even heard of it until you mentioned it.
Most people have not.
It's weird though, because it's got Johnny Depp and Marlon Brando in it. Like, that's weird.
It's Johnny Depp. 1994 Johnny Depp.
Yeah, but that's right? but that's post Edward Scissorhands, right? Edward Scissorhands was like 91.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, Johnny Depp was big in the 90s, man. I remember him being big in the 90s. I don't know.
Yeah, so Johnny Depp, Marlon Brando, and Faye Dunaway, bizarrely.
Yeah.
So I put the movie on our list of shame because we need alternatives from Full Metal Jacket and City of God, which is another movie we watched between now and the last time.
We forgot about that until this moment. Yeah.
Selective memory, man.
Not necessarily for me. No, we're not going to talk about City of God, are we?
That is the hands down the most brutal film I've ever watched.
Like,
period.
It made me uncomfortable, and I'm a horror fan. Like, I even found it excessively violent because it's not just violent; it's cruel and brutal. It's not just violent. It's so much beyond just mindless violence.
I appreciated the direction. I don't know that I needed that. I didn't need that movie in my life. Maybe I'm happy it exists, but I will just quickly say that
I liked it and loved it for all the reasons that it's awful. Like not like quality awful, but just the themes and everything that happens is awful. But I will never watch it again unless someone says, "Oh, I really want to see City of God," and I'm like, "All right, I'll watch it with you."
Well, it's all based on a true story. I did. I don't know if I. So City of we didn't mean to talk about City of God, but it's an interesting thing, and it's the opposite of Don Juan DeMarco. So I thought it would be
polar opposite.
Yeah. So City of God is a movie about a kid that grew up in the
Brazil, isn't it?
Brazilian slums.
Yeah, Rio, I think. The slums of Rio.
I don't remember specifically the city, and I'm not 100% that it's Brazil. But it's in Portuguese, and it's about a kid that grew up in the slums and became a I think he's a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
But the slums are run by gangs, and we see sort of the transfer of power as the gang members grow older. The photographer's brother is in a gang and is killed by the antagonist of the movie who is a child when he does it. There's lots of violence, children against children in the movie.
There's
Murders.
Children inflicting violence on other children. It's very uncomfortable and not a fun watch.
Yeah. I don't know the history of the film. I don't know anything about Brazil.
I'm pretty sure it's Brazil.
Yeah. So it was interesting from that standpoint of consuming another culture that bits of another stories from another culture that you're not familiar with.
Right.
It's just this particular, and later in the movie we see that like this is very specific to the slums themselves, as we see other parts of as he gets outside of the slums. So there are other stories to tell. And ultimately, it seems like the theme of the movie ends up being that violence creates violence. It's about the cycle of violence.
Yeah.
And that is not... I know. There are...
It's not really a lesson we need to learn, is it?
There are tons of stories that exist, and that is their theme.
Yeah.
The cycle of violence creates violence. That said, it is expertly directed.
Yeah. From a technical aspect,
movie.
It's amazing. Yeah. Like the direction, the editing, performance is great. And it was very creative considering it has a low budget vibe to it. I don't know if it was actually low budget, but it doesn't look like a lot of money went into it. But it's well made.
Yeah, it's not a Hollywood movie.
No, it's very much an indie film. It doesn't
have that spit and polish and factory assembly line
and
whatever. And the visual aesthetic of the director felt very. It had kind of a music video aesthetic, which
or
applied
even just
to this content felt very unusual.
It seemed like guerrilla filmmaking or something, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, when you don't have a big budget, you have to be more creative if you want it to be good. And I think they nailed that. I think.
Yeah, very creative camera. The camera was rarely locked down. They did bits like there was a mini story within the story about this apartment, how the apartment became a drug den, and how it was passed among drug dealers over time. And they locked the camera down and shot a locked off perspective of the apartment, and the apartment, as the story goes on, degrades. And it's a 1 or 2 minute sequence. But it degrades, and, you know, they aged the apartment and it becomes grimy and ugly over the course of these 2 minutes. Like, that's the kind of...
It's very clever.
Yeah, that's the kind of visual storytelling that exists within the movie. So like I said, I think I'm happy it exists. It's just like I didn't need that in my eye holes.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's fair.
I get to choose the stories that I consume and what I want, like what I want in my mind and living in my imagination. And there are images in that had I known going on, I might have been like, I'm okay. You know, read the wiki summary of the movie, you know, have that opportunity.
I loved it, and I'm very glad I watched it, but I will not go out of my way to watch it again.
Yeah. And I don't know that I would say that about Full Metal Jacket. I thought Full Metal Jacket was a grind.
That again.
Right.
I actually want to watch it again, especially that first half. Like, whoa.
When we were all done watching Full Metal Jacket, we had like 1,000-yard stare. We actually lost part of our movie group.
Yeah.
What? Because I'm out.
Yeah. Because City of God.
Yeah, because in the middle of City of God.
Yeah,
because it was so hard to watch. It's Full Metal Jacket had nothing on that by way of tension and the grind of the movie.
Yeah.
So Don Juan DeMarco. The List of Shame, City of God is a very significant foreign film. It's in the top 20 movies all time on the IMDb.
And I can understand that. I can.
I don't know if I can understand that.
I know you took issue with it. I remember you saying that.
I think there's you and I together could come up with 20 movies.
Sure.
That should knock that off the list.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. It wouldn't be in my top 20, but I can see why it is in the top 20.
Yeah.
Like in the zeitgeist, I guess.
Yeah. But the list of shame, which is supposed to be sort of like the broaden your palette kind of see the significant pieces of art that you've never seen. Unfortunately, we know contains either things that are confronting and excruciating, or Lawrence of Arabia.
That is good for like half an hour and then just becomes mind-numbing.
That is a little on the long side. Whose
it's very pretty though, very very pretty.
It's very pretty.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Lawrence of Arabia's that my inability to enjoy Lawrence of Arabia is Lawrence of Arabia's fault.
No,
so much as it is my fault.
And also just the fact that like storytelling has evolved so much.
Tastes change, storytelling's change, and if you lack a particular connection to the material or the history of it, or a personal connection to the material, I think it's challenging and a little less accessible. But anyway, we felt like the list of shame needed palate cleansers. Right? Like, it breaks from the assault of violence.
Didn't we roll something else and then no? So the way we pick is we randomly roll 3 films and then we roll again to decide which of the 3. Didn't we unanimously pick Don Juan?
I don't remember. We roll 3 films, and then everyone gets a chance to use one veto on one of the 3 films, and then we re-roll that one. You can only veto once.
Yeah.
But there are 4 potential vetoes in our group every time. And it seems like lately we've been like, okay, we had a
horrible one.
Yeah, we had a horrible note. Now we watch something light, so forth, to sort of shake things up.
But there have been moments where we roll something that we're all excited for, and so we just decide to watch that one.
I don't think that was Don Juan.
Okay.
It became evident from a very early age that there was something different about me. By the time I was 10, the attraction that females had for me was becoming of some concern to my mother. At the age of 21, I have fulfilled fantasies of men 3 times my age. My name is Don Juan DeMarco. I am the world's greatest lover.
But I think Jacob's Ladder, which is a movie about Vietnam post-traumatic stress disorder, got on the list of 3, the short list, and one of us vetoed it because we were like, no, we need a down step, and then ended up with Don Juan. Okay. So, originally, though, when you and I made the list, you and I have had lots of talks about romanticism, and I don't mean romanticism in the academic sense of a cultural movement in art. We're talking about the modern sense of the word. Like if someone says, I'm a romantic or I'm a hopeless romantic or whatever it is, that's the way we're talking about it. Jack, are you a romantic?
Very much so, Ian. Like, you don't even need to ask me that question, but for the sake of the audience, yes. I'm very much a romantic. I often describe myself as, a hopeless romantic or a bleeding heart romantic. I'm sort of one of those passionate, love-drunk romantics, which
Would you say you still are?
Well, yeah. But I've come to realize that, it's not an inherently bad thing. It's not like being in love and loving being in love. That's not a bad thing. But when you allow yourself, I would
distinguish love and romanticism. But go ahead. When you allow yourself what?
But when you allow yourself to get kind of irrationally swept up in all of that, it can lead to some situations that can be damaging to oneself and even kind of toxic. So I guess I'm in the process of learning how to find a middle ground there. Because I don't want to lose that passionate sort of side of me. No, my objective is not to lose that. It's more to find a rationality to it, I guess, or a realism to it or something.
Yeah, that's something that we've explored in conversation. I think that when you and I first met, I was kind of experiencing a romantic deep freeze for the first time in a way that I didn't quite understand. I had been in a relationship where I'd sort of stopped living the rest of my life and had sort of put everything in this. And I was in the midst of realizing that was a huge error. And I think that I was maybe unfairly demonizing romanticism at the time as just sort of like, I called myself a sobering romantic or a recovering romantic, as opposed to lovesick one or a drunken romantic. I was drunk quite a bit. And the whole idea of, I don't know, love at first sight or meet cutes, the conventions of modern romanticism, I find them pretty exhausting. I've been charmed by...
You can have attraction at first sight, but love at first sight's probably a bit much, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there are love at first sight is
I love
nonsense.
The idea of it, but I know it's bullshit, you know?
Yeah. But the other thing too, I think the other thing too, right? Like, okay, so if love at first sight is nonsense, then how do you diagnose a person who believes that they have suffered from it? Do you know what I mean? Like, are they conflating sexual attraction with romantic intimacy?
That's the only explanation that I have for that, really. Because, I mean, in my much younger days, I'm talking like my teenage days, I would confuse attraction with having feelings for somebody, which is completely like, it's nonsense. Like, but that's also a very teenage thing, especially for a teenage boy, you know.
Is it just a teenage thing?
I don't. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I say my teenage years. I probably didn't shrug it off until I was in my 20s. So, you know.
Well, the conventions of you know, I think that anyone has a potential to enjoy any genre. The percentage, like I think I say I'm not a horror fan, but that's because I'm capable of casually enjoying 15% of the genre.
Right.
Like, you know, the percent that crosses with horror science fiction, or
and
horror
you like
fantasy.
Knives Out, but that's more of a murder mystery. It wasn't really. Horror,
Alien. Is a horror movie, but it's horror science fiction. So on and so forth. You know, I think there are wonderful romantic comedies out there, but there's a big bulk of them that have all of those tropey, like a tropey action movie. I can get into it. A tropey drama, like, you know, your average tearjerker. I'll cry. I'll have a good time with it.
When you watch an action film, there's very specific expectations that don't require a lot, you know?
But I think that's true of a tropey romantic comedy too, right? Like, here's the meet cute, here's the whatever. But because it's neither of our favorite genre, we're not specifically familiar with all of those.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I agree with
tropes.
That.
But if you're a fan of the genre, it's like meet cutes don't bother you. It's like, here's the meet cute, here's the bit, here's the part where they think they're gonna break up, and here's the part where one of them realizes that they belong with the other one, and here's the run to the airport that I talked about in the video. You know, But I've always found those things kind of exhausting. Like the idea of love at first sight. The thing that always comes back to me is Giles yelling at Amy and bewitched, bothered, and bewildered. I know it's not love. It's obsession.
Yeah. Selfish,
banal obsession.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. I think in this conversation, I actually just clarified something for myself about that episode. That episode, I mean, every episode is in some way reflecting Buffy's journey that season. So that episode is supposed to be also reflecting Buffy's relationship with Angel. So Spike yelling at Amy, or not Spike, Giles yelling at Amy, and the idea of selfish, banal obsession is supposed to in some way relate to Angel. When I look into the future, all I see is you, and her not being able to go out on her hunting without the two of them making out constantly.
Right.
Yeah, and this, that, and the other thing. So it's supposed to be an echo.
I think that fits.
But the thing of it is so I always felt like, but Buffy did love Angel, right? The thing of it is that love and obsession are not mutually exclusive.
Oh yeah, you can have both at the same time. Absolutely. And I remember reading somewhere quite a while ago now that the part of the brain that deals with obsession is the same part that deals with love. So like falling in love with someone is like a mild form of obsession in a way.
Yeah, I kind of wish that I mean, if the episode guide had been written front to back before I ever started releasing episodes, there's been a lot. I spent a lot of time building because of those scenes and the what season 2 was trying to say about love. I spent a lot of time building up the idea of selfless versus selfish love, adult love versus the teenage love, so on and so forth. And I think that were better ways to say it. Of course, I've changed in the 7 years that the video guides have been coming along. Anyway, sorry, I'm awfully tangential. It's okay. This way when we haven't done this in a while.
Yeah.
The best romantic comedies. So we're talking about the percentage. My favorite romantic comedies, not best because that's subjective, of course. My favorite romantic comedies or favorite romances tend to be the ones about relationships that happen over many years.
Right. Okay.
So I'm a cookie dough shipper, but between Bike.
I haven't heard that one before.
I've never heard that before.
Why has no one ever said that?
But Bike and Angel.
That's so much better than Spuffy, and
I get why. Yeah, it is better than Bike and Angel. You can't put Angel first in that AFI. It has to be Angel.
Yeah, it has to be.
But Spuffy's, and she should be first.
Spuffy. The thing I like about Spuffy, it sounds kind of comical. I do like that.
Well, I mean.
But Bike is actually no. Bike Buffy is funnier.
So, yeah, Bike.
Yeah.
Between Bike and Angel, I think Spike and Buffy are more interesting because the relationship is more long term.
Yeah.
There are more mistakes. There's more growth. There's more.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's based on a longer term, deep understanding of each other. You know, like the whole point of the Angel Buffy relationship is that she was willingly overlooking things.
Yeah.
That initially it was that he's a vampire and he can't have children and he's going to live forever and she's going to grow old. You know, before they knew about the curse. Then they knew about the curse, and in season 3 she was willfully overlooking things. Now, I don't consider the actual Spike and Buffy romance to start until season 7. Season Spike loved her. Spike had a crush on her, but to me, she's banging him to feel.
Yes.
In season 6. the love, the intimacy from her, I think really starts, the emotional intimacy really starts in 7.
But you couldn't have season 7 without the stuff that came before it, though, is all I would say.
But that's what I'm talking about, is like a really good romance needs a lot of build-up, a lot of familiarity, a lot of knowing each other. My favorite, it's a cliche, but my favorite, it's a cliche to say this, but my favorite romantic comedy is When Harry Met Sally.
Yes,
and it is a story about two people who started by hating each other, and over the course of years became best friends, and then started a romantic relationship. And that to me is so much more, that's intimacy, that's genuine. You know, the rest of it is sexual intimacy with a delusion on top of it. When you talk about meet cutes and love at first sights or whatever, those two people in that long-term relationship, then the courage that it must take to risk that long-term relationship for intimacy beyond that,
right?
It to me is much more courageous and interesting and more fun and more compelling and more dramatic. So that's kind of where I'm at. But all of that said, but by the way, what are your, I mentioned 2 of mine, like my go-to romantic relationships stories. What are a couple of yours? I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know if I have a favorite romantic comedy. I mean, I'm sure I do. I just hadn't thought about it, to be honest. But I'm sure there is one. But immediately my mind goes to Clementine and Joel from Eternal Sunshine. I love the idea of 2 people who love each other finding a way to strip away all of the bullshit and the fighting and the turmoil and just kind of doing the work and sort of finding a way to rediscover their love for each other and realizing that they do still love each other and they're not ready or they're not going to give up without a fight, you know? I love that idea.
Yeah, that movie again is about a relationship with history, you know, and the history feels earned and grounded and all of that, you know.
I also love Theodore and Samantha from Her. I think that movie really explores what it is to truly love someone, and I think it really digs into the whole concept of if you truly love someone, you'll do what's best for them, even if it's kind of a detriment to yourself or your own feelings. You'll sort of allow them to do what is best for them. But also, I mean, if we're talking Buffy, look, when I was really, really young, I was all about Bangel, but now I'm pretty much a bike shipper for all the reasons you listed.
A bike shipper, I love it. Yeah, and to me, there's something there like that. I think my unwillingness to self-apply the term romantic, which I've told people, if someone asks me if I'm a romantic, generally I say no, but the people who know me, when they hear me say no, are like, yeah, you are.
Absolutely. Like it annoys me hearing you just say those words.
But I think it's because I think of, when I think of the term romantic, I think of Bangel and not bike. You know?
Sorry, it's still funny to me.
I think of mainstream, conventional, or rather paint by numbers romantic comedies. Like I think of You Complete Me, which is a line I hate. Philosophically, I hate it. I hate I like Jerry Maguire's an interesting movie. But I hate that whole idea. I think of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl and the tear collector. She's literally collecting his tears in Garden State. So I say no because I bristle at all of those ideas. But I don't know. I don't know.
I'm trying to think of like a romantic comedy, like my actual favorite romantic comedy, and I'm not sure. Really not sure.
I think we need to watch more of them.
Yeah,
because I think it's an unexplored genre for us both.
Yeah, and like knowing me, and look, I have seen a lot of romantic comedies. Don't get me wrong. And knowing me and just the way I am, I know I've got a favorite. I just can't think of one.
Well, when I think about all those things, my ass begins to twitch, as Kevin Kline says in French Kiss. All right, so Don Juan DeMarco. This is sort of like the circular reason. I feel like what's interesting about the movie are the thoughts that it explores, and I think part of that requires some context in how you and I think about romantic relationships and love. Before we get into it, before we spoil anything, because I think that it can be spoiled. There's a mystery. There's a question to it.
Yeah. So we are gonna be kind of spoiling stuff here.
Yeah.
Not not specifics, but kind of.
Yeah. The fiction of the story can be spoiled, but the point of the movie is that it can't.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, that's a beautiful way to put it. Well done.
Yeah, but just in case, Jack, would you recommend Don Juan DeMarco?
Absolutely, I would. I definitely would. It's cute and it's adorable and it's got a lot of heart. Going into it, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. You said it was fun and adorable and cute, and I think you said it was a romantic comedy, but I had no idea. But yeah, I loved it, even though it's some parts are a little, I won't say dated, because I think that implies something I don't mean, but it hasn't aged.
It's an older film.
Yeah.
When you think of other movies from 1994 and some of the problems that come with where the zeitgeist was at that time, it has some of those problems.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm not even sure it's a romantic comedy. It is a comedy that is romantic.
Yeah.
But when I think about,
because it's not a When Harry Met Sally. It's not a French kiss.
It's a weird movie.
Yeah.
There's something special about it that I think is hard to sum up, but we'll try.
Yeah.
And I think it does inform a way I've always thought about romance. So Johnny Depp plays Don Juan DeMarco. Yes, it's Johnny Depp whitewashing another character.
Yeah. He kind of looks the part, though, kind of, even though I know he's not, because I don't think he has, Mexican or Spanish heritage.
He doesn't. Yeah. He does all the voiceover of the film until the end, and he opens up the movie by saying that so the movie takes place in modern times, 1994.
Yep.
And he opens the movie by telling us that he is the Don Juan, the world's greatest lover living in modern times. He has a cape, a sword, a mask.
He's basically Zorro.
Yeah, he's sexy Zorro.
Yeah.
He's swinging Zorro. So the movie is open. He has one last fling and then goes to commit suicide. The police get called and they bring in a state shrink. There's a moth in here. I apologize.
And I just dribbled water down my face.
Well, there we go. We're professionals. The police get called, and they bring in a state shrink played by later years
legendary Marlon Brando. Didn't you say this was when he openly hated making movies?
Yeah, he hated acting. He hated making movies, but his personal life story is deeply tragic. So I don't want to bring it into this.
No.
But he was paying bills.
Yeah,
he went through a period of his life paying bills. And I'm pretty sure that's why Johnny Depp ended up in the movie, was to work with Marlon Brando. And once those two were in it, you get Faye Dunaway, and that's how a movie like this gets made.
Yeah,
I think. Marlon Brando pretends to be a Don and talks Johnny Depp into coming to his villa.
Yeah,
which is actually an institution.
Yeah,
Johnny Depp is there on a 10-day commitment, and Marlon Brando, to treat him, asks him to tell him why he was trying to kill himself. And so Johnny Depp relates his history, and we see his story in these conventionally romantic, warm-colored flashbacks that treat his backstory as 100% true.
Absolutely, yeah.
they're a lot of fun, and they're
so over the top. Like they're so like they lean into it hard. It's like balls to the wall. They really go for it.
It's bodice ripping. It's
even like the performances are very grand, and it's like it's like a different movie in a way.
It's theatrical. It's romantic, and the world outside of it is not. And it reminds me of Romancing the Stone. Kathleen Turner is a romance novelist, and those movies all have montages of her writing bits from her books, and the bits in the montages are the kind of the way the Johnny Depp flashback scenes are. In the meantime, as Marlon Brando takes care of Johnny Depp, he starts seeing his own life in a new light. His relationship with his wife, Faye Dunaway, is rekindled. And the movie has a curiously ambiguous ending.
Yeah.
It may be my favorite ambiguous ending of any story ever. So I saw this movie in the theater when I was 14 years old.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. In the sequence, Marlon Brando has escorted Johnny Depp back to this island to find Don Juan's lost love. And Marlon Brando is pontificating in the voiceover. Did things work out for the Don? Did he find his great lost love who promised to wait on that beach for all eternity? And we see an empty beach. And he says, why not? And she walks out from behind the sand dune. The music swells, and they dance, and the credits roll. And Jack, what did you think?
So that ending, I had a very, very split second where I was getting the same feeling that I get from the Buffy episode Normal Again.
I knew. Before we got to the end, I was like, I bet this is going to evoke Normal Again for him.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of our audience is already aware how I feel about that episode. But for those who may not, Normal Again for me is a masterpiece of an episode. I truly love it. But the ambiguous ending bothers me to no end, because I don't like the implication that the entire show, is just the delusions of a teenage girl in a mental institution. I hate that. I mean, it just bothers me a lot. So I had a brief moment at the end of this film where I was like, wait, so was it real or not? But then almost in an instant, I just shrugged and thought, who cares? I think...
Yeah.
Right? I think the ending of Don Juan is perfect, and whether it was real or not it's besides the point, and I think if you keep trying to figure it out, I think you are totally missing the point of the film. It's real for Don Juan, and the effect it has on Marlon Brando's character is real, so who cares?
Yeah, and I love that distinction. I think it's not that love is a delusion, or rather, it's not that romance is a delusion. It's not what I'm trying to say, but there's some theater to it.
Yeah.
There is some... I'm not talking about artifice, like the down on one knee and all, but that could be that feels like artifice to me, but it might not feel that way to other people.
Right.
I've watched some proposal videos online that made me cringe so hard I wanted to break in half.
But then there are others that are gorgeous.
But the bride cried, and they hugged, and that was real to the two of them. And I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Is that romantic comedies fall apart when you consider any aspect of reality for the characters.
Yeah.
Barring long relationships that led into the romantic.
Because a lot of those films, they tend to be quite fanciful. I mean, most relationships in most romantic comedies, they don't play out like that in real life.
Yeah. It's like what happens after happily ever after.
Yeah.
Is always kind of the thought. But Don Juan isn't about that. It's more about and it's so hard to talk about this without lapsing into cliche, but I would say like the art of love.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Or the art of passion, the texture of it, the experience of it. And none of those things have anything to do with cold reality.
No.
Taxes, income, healthcare benefits. There's a like we were talking about, there's a theater to romance and relationships. The two of you living inside a story which with each other that doesn't exist beyond the boundaries of the bed or the RV or the tent or the whatever it may be. You know, it doesn't exist beyond the boundaries of your shared lives.
Right.
And from the outside looking in, that is nonsense. Yes, you spent the whole day in bed together, but that doesn't mean the world outside the boundaries of the bed didn't keep on spinning.
Right.
But who cares?
Right.
That also doesn't mean that the story you're writing with each other isn't real for you both. Those two realities coexist.
Yep.
You know, and for the people outside of it, it's true, and for the people inside of it, it's true. And I think one of my issues is that a lot of love stories don't acknowledge that there's a distinction between those two. There's a lot of entitled, privileged lovers in romantic comedies.
Yeah.
You know, the people who just don't seem to be living a life with that that acknowledges the life outside of their set of desires and their wants and their, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's why, I mean, especially in terms of, you know, the reality of it versus the passion, the drunkenness of it. I think that is why there is such a stark, noticeable difference between the fantastical or the fantasy scenes, for lack of a better word, and like the scenes that are in reality. I think that was a very intentional move, because I think it shows exactly what you were saying, that there is a difference between the fantasy of it and the reality.
Yeah. And the movie starts out as whether or not Marlon Brando will bring this kid to the understanding that he is not Don Juan. And the kid brings Marlon Brando to the understanding that he's the Don he said he was, to talk the kid off. Yeah,
what's the line? You've seen through all of my masks.
You've seen through all of my masks.
Yeah.
Right?
Gorgeous.
And I of course, I love the... And it's something that only works in this story, and that's okay. You know? The idea that Marlon Brando went... the movie doesn't care about what happens after the end of the scene, but it's not about that either, because it doesn't suggest as a happily ever after. It just talks about the love in these moments and in from the opening to the ending between these characters and these relationships and all of that. Like we said, there are bits that haven't aged well. Parts of it are garish at times, but mostly I think Johnny Depp does an incredible job of seducing the viewer with his ideas.
Yeah. I
really
agree
love
with
it.
that. Yeah. He's Johnny Depp is such a great character actor, even though I don't think when you say character actor, you don't think of Johnny Depp straight away. You know what I mean? He doesn't. I mean, he's essentially an A-list actor at this point, and you wouldn't typically...
a movie star.
Huh?
A movie star.
Well, yeah. And so typically character actors don't fit into that category typically, but you know, you think about Edward Scissorhands, Jack Sparrow, like he's really good at just becoming characters, and I think that's what he did here. And yeah, like ultimately, just like the film, I didn't care about the outside world or the reality of it, and that's why I was just like, you know what, who cares? It's fine. And you know, I already touched on it, but I just loved like the fantastical scenes, the fantasy scenes, because they were so over the top. You know, the sets, then the costumes and the performances were so lavish and grand. Which it just really lent itself to the film overall, and I think it gave a lot of life to those scenes, which in a sense made them more real. And I think without that, if they made it a little more subdued, there wouldn't have been great enough of a contrast between the reality and the fantasy in the films.
Yeah, I think I loved the idea of the film distinguishing between the character's romantic life versus actual reality. And I think that a bad romantic comedy wants to pretend that romantic life is life, that it's the whole world entire, that it is everything, you know. And I think that's where like that feeling of like these characters being sort of weirdly privileged and entitled kind of comes into play. But I'm not even really sure what I'm trying to say. The thing, like when you get back to the idea of being a romantic, being a drunken romantic, a hopeless romantic, what I think of with a hopeless romantic is someone who is a slave to romance. You know, someone who is these characters in the movie. There's the delusion of the story and there's the reality of the story. And the delusion, for lack of a better word, is the idea of romance and art and love and all of this. And it's Marlon Brando submits to that world.
Yeah.
He chooses that world.
It's very much a choice,
you know? Was she waiting on the beach the entire time? Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Why not? It's so beautiful, and the giving us a concrete answer of yes, she was, or no, it's not about that.
And I think giving us a straight answer in the ending would have sullied the point of the film in a way, and it would have taken away a lot of its beauty, I think, and its elegance.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea of that, of not becoming so sobered by reality that you lose access to that romanticism, I think is a beautiful thing, but also not being a slave to it.
Yeah, there is
in
a
a
distinction.
Hopeless sense. Like that's such a tragic term. Hopeless.
Yeah.
Romantic.
Hopeless
Can you
is
imagine
typically
romance
not a
without
good word.
hope? Yeah, absolutely. So when I was younger, I kind of getting back to why I thought this would be an interesting movie to talk about. I think I was more the head over heels type. I'm not sure that I believed in the idea of the one, but I wrote lots of bad poetry, Jack.
Oh, me too, buddy. Me too. I don't even know if I'm over that now. I haven't written any in a while, but I'll probably write some more.
Well, I mean, and I write the channel, so and when I wasn't, I craved romantic intimacy, craved it. And I think we've touched on like a part of that when you're younger too is not being able to fully distinguish between your sex drive, your loneliness, and just a desire for emotional intimacy. All three of those things kind of blend together into this mishmash of attraction and confusion and all of that. But when I wasn't in a romantic relationship, I found things kind of like invalidating.
Yeah.
So a simple way of describing it, no meaning I was able to experience under any other circumstance through any other medium felt as rich, validating, and or as important as what I managed to get out of romantic relationships.
Right, yeah.
And later in life, I kind of started seeing that as a symptom of a bigger problem. I never really felt okay with myself, constant imposter syndrome, whether it's at a job or in relationships or in friendships or whatever it may be. And enjoying the validation that comes from relationships is one thing.
Yeah.
But feeding off of it.
Right. Yeah. That's where it gets dangerous. That's where it's very unhealthy.
That's where it becomes toxic. You have to be able to self-validate.
Yeah.
You know, if you're lost on a desert island, there's got to be things that you can still do to fill the time, whether it's carving something out of a piece of wood or whatever it may be, you know, to the things that are confirming. And self-validating, I think that's what knowing who you are is, what you're capable of, knowing your worth and your value. Mm-hmm. And I think about ravenous imposter syndrome and brutal self-esteem is if you're driven to relationships for validation, not having one is actually reinforcement of that self-hatred that's already there.
Yep.
So the void or lack of a partnership means something. As in, why don't I have a relationship? What's wrong with me that I'm not in a relationship all the time? Loneliness feels like a painful insinuation, where if you build confidence and can love and validate yourself, loneliness just means, hey, I'm not in a relationship right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, now that I've been through this, I whatever that is, sort of that pathway of, oh, okay, I feel like I'm well, I'm definitely a different person than I was 8 years ago. But it's sort of relearning. I also went into this period where I was like, I just need to get healthy with me and sort of understand myself and all of that. And like, I don't think I ever made a conscious choice to just stop pursuing relationships, but I did.
Right.
And it was just about work, friendships, stop pursuing romantic relationships. It was just about work and the channel and all of that. But like, I'm sort of now rediscovering that what romance is from the other side of that perspective.
Right.
You know, and that's one of the things I love about that movie is, you know, obsession and love are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
And that choice to be romantic, to submit to, not submit, but to allow yourself to enjoy the theater of it, to let the world outside fade out for a while. Yeah. You know, for an evening.
That's what I meant earlier when I was talking about finding a middle ground. That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah. The fact that the world outside didn't actually fade out doesn't matter. You know, who cares?
Yeah.
But that's a distinction now as an adult that I'm able to make, where I know that reality is one thing, and I can say, okay, I'm going to put that aside for now.
Yeah.
You know, I'll come back to it.
Yeah.
You always come back to it.
Yeah.
But for this moment, at this period in time, like, this is the story that we are writing with each other. And that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I myself, I've been single for a very long time now. And
I would debate I would debate your interpretation of the word single, but that's not really the point. Go ahead.
I've had some nightmare relationships where I was stuck in limbo, but that's neither here nor there, I guess.
Well, those count.
Well, yeah, they count, but yeah, no, can you call it a relationship when you're with someone who doesn't actually commit to you? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, sure. Okay, well, yeah, okay, but let's just say though, for the majority of the time, since I guess, well,
if you two kept the fire of feelings kindled for more than a couple of days,
yeah, and that's what I had.
At what point we call it relationship versus fling versus whatever. I'm sure there's a distinction between all of those. But anyway, we don't need to get into the specifics.
I mean, the situation we're referring to was definitely more than a fling.
Yeah,
it was beyond a fling, and it was on again and off again, but it ended in disaster. Fucking disaster. Sorry, I swore. I shouldn't use F-bomb, should I?
Well, we started the podcast by talking about butt chugging.
Yeah. But anyway, so look, I do know what you're talking about, and I haven't had a proper healthy relationship in a long time now. And towards the end of last year, I had a bit of it was a very brief fling that just sort of fizzled out. Not the situation we were referring to just now, a different person, a lovely young lady, well, a lady around my age. Yeah, that's just a colloquial thing, whatever.
Okay, just keep going, man. Just keep going. You can do this.
Yeah. So anyway, look, it fizzled out, and because I'm me, I got the warm and fuzzies, and so when it fizzled out, things were a little tough for me for a little while there. And what it really highlighted for me though was how lonely I was feeling at the time, but it also highlighted and brought to the surface a lot of issues I've had for years surrounding validation, self-validation, and self-love, stuff you were just touching on. And there have been times, not specifically with this instance, but there have been times in the past where I felt like I was looking for someone to help me be a whole, to complete me,
That's why I hate that line so much.
Because you can't get that from another person. You
right,
absolutely
it's
cannot.
So notoriously one of the most repeated lines of romantic dramas or whatever.
I understand where it comes from, because when you're laying there holding someone, you feel such a peace and such a calm that I think that's where it comes from. That sense of well-being that comes with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get it.
There's a sense of being complete that can come from another person, but the idea of you complete me, is something altogether different, and I hate it.
Yeah, but so it brought to the surface a lot of this stuff I had been dealing with for a very long time. Well, stuff I had for a long time and wasn't dealing with, shall we say. But I wasn't able to see a lot of these issues with such clarity until around that time, which is ultimately what led me into getting therapy. But when you're dealing with those kinds of issues, loneliness and like feeling lost and alone, and trying to find validation externally, it ends up taking up so much space in your mind. I mean, at least it does for me.
It's consuming.
Yeah, it's consuming, and it led me to a funk where I couldn't. I couldn't do a lot beyond that, because my mind was so filled with all this just crap that had been dug up, like stuff I didn't like about myself, or stuff that not that I didn't like about myself, but just stuff I knew I had that I needed to deal with. But anyway, so I ended up dealing with it in a few ways. Like when I say dealing with it, it's a process, right? It's a process. But firstly, I got my ass into therapy, which was a huge part of it. But also, with things like that, you often just have to give it time, like referring to, having feelings for someone and then it not working out. You sort of just got to give that time to fade, and, you can...
Grief's a process.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean...
I was very surprised you didn't quote me back to be there.
It's probably going to happen. We'll see. But also a huge part of it was also I very intentionally put myself into a bit of a deep freeze, which is a term I blatantly stole from you, Ian.
I didn't mean to do that when I did it. It just kind of snuck up on me, and I was like,
I sort of did it intentionally because like it sounds like on the surface it's like putting yourself into a stasis where you just don't deal with what's going on, and in a way that's kind of true, but for me what it means was allowing all the emotions and the inner turmoil to sort of simmer down and fade to the point where I could essentially start dealing with the roots of the problems and just assessing the situation without all the distractions from all the emotions and the turmoil. You know what I mean?
I think that ultimately was kind of the reason why I ended up that way. By the way, what we mean by deep freeze is like when I was describing it is I had zero emotional desire to date for a long time. Mm-hmm. I felt like I should because philosophically I believed that life is better shared.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But when it came to even just looking at online dating profiles or thinking about the people in my life or thinking about going to places and meeting new people, I couldn't even fantasize about that. I couldn't fantasize about the possibilities and potentialities of a new relationship and how good that might feel or whatever. I could not summon that fantasy. It just was, there was just nothing there. It just felt like, and that to me was a weird my fantasy life in intimate relationships to be frozen out from me felt strange, where I couldn't even fantasize about how great it would feel to be loved by someone or to whatever. It was bizarre when I realized I was there, and I thought maybe it was just accumulated lack of momentum, accumulated inertia. But I think it's more what you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like being a romantic and loving the idea of love and falling in love and being in love and all of that, throughout a lot of my life, I've always felt like I've been searching for that, and more often than not, I have some romantic interest, someone I'm interested in and whatnot. But for this year, I just haven't, and I think that's been healthy for me because it's allowed me to focus on myself rather than looking outwards for someone. So we're here now, more than 6 months later, and kidney illnesses aside, I'm definitely in a better place mentally and emotionally. Like, still some work to do. But I don't know, man. Like, do you think there is a finish line with stuff like this? Because no, because it's just a constant journey with an ebb and a flow to it, and I don't feel like there's ever going to be like a eureka, thanks doc, I'm all cured moment. It's.
Well, we were talking about this. The funny part is that what we're basically both saying is that it took us to mid-30s before before we were able to have the realization that Buffy had at 17 or 18, which is like, or rather the cookie dough moment. I'm not done baking, right?
Yeah.
Of course, written fiction. I just think it's funny that, certainly. Anyway, I that needing to get to know yourself, get to know what you're good at. I'm sure some people just sort of naturally fall into that, and or develop a confidence or an aptitude when they're younger that just is with them, and they have that sense of self and self-worth. But it was not present for me, but it felt like it was, or rather it felt like I had been dealt a certain hand of cards, and this is the hand I've been dealt, and I need to play this hand.
Yeah.
I need to, these are the cards I have. These are the cards I was born with. This is what the man that I became at 21. I either am going to make this hand work or I'm effed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And we were talking about before we started recording, the thing of it is you kind of fail and change and succeed and change and plan whatever long enough over the course of time and become a different person as time passes just naturally.
Right.
That you realize how possible change is.
Yeah.
You know?
And a huge part of it for me too was just, I'm in my mid-30s now, like I'm approaching middle age. It's time for me to get my shit sorted, to get my shit together, like mentally and emotionally. Like I don't want to keep carrying the burden and the pain and all the shit that I've been carrying for so long. Like I want to finally be done with it, or at least find a place to put it that makes it easier to carry, you know?
Yeah. Like if change can and does happen inevitably over the course of time, then that also means that it can be guided, chosen, deliberate, purposeful.
Yeah.
It's not easy. But it is possible, and
you have a choice. You don't have a good choice, but you have a choice. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, maybe that's what free will is on a long enough timeline. But anyway,
yeah, I used to get really into like the idea of like soulmates and like, you know, the one and all of that. And it was only after like long conversations with you where I had this realization of that removes free will, saying that there's one person in all the world that you were destined to be with, or you have to try to find your soulmate. I think it's so much more beautiful to choose to love someone, to choose to be with someone. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, the other thing too was I never pronounce his name correctly, and whenever I change the way I pronounce it, there's always someone saying, "No, it was pronounced the other way." Jean-Paul Sartre, or Sartre.
Yes, Sartre. I have no idea.
Sartre. You know, if the access to meaning in life is found in freedom and the ability to choose and pursue meaning and all of that, then inevitably in relationships, there may come a time where one person has enslaved their choices to the other one, right? And so doing that abandons their access that they have to live a meaningful life.
Right, yeah.
And so part of his whole deal was inevitably it may become necessary. And I heard he was not a cool person.
Yeah, I've heard he was quite a miserable bastard from what I hear.
Weird that the French existentialist would be like that, but
because he and
inevitably
were
believed
good friends, and I think they had a falling out.
They had a falling out, but inevitably he believed that relationships needed the ability to break up and fall apart because on a long enough timeline, you couldn't have two people enslave themselves to each other.
Right, yeah.
Not that that's inevitable, but the potential always exists. And so if that potential exists, then there is no sacred relationship. There is no perfect relationship. There's just, the one where the eye is regularly on freedom and responsibility and choice and communication. So
that's beautiful, man. I love that.
Before we get to the fanfic reading, I just want to let you know that I'm at Ian Nitram on Twitter.
And I'm at Lack of Surprise 1. That's all one word with a number 1 at the end. If you'd like to support the podcast and keep us flush with roses and long walks on the beach, to eat, you can do so. Is that a scripting error?
Some people like to eat their long walks on the beach. What do you want from me?
You can support us by going to patreon.com/passion of their nerd. With the $5 and up club, you can join us in the hangout this weekend for Into the Woods. 5 p.m. Eastern US time for the rewatch, then 6:30 p.m. US Eastern for the hangout itself. And
yeah, that hangout's gonna start slightly late because it's a 40-minute video.
Right, yeah. But if you can't make it, that's cool, because the replays can be found in the playlist over on the main channel.
You can also help us out by grabbing yourself something from passionofthenerd.com/store. We have new designs still.
We do.
Fabulous submissions that we're grateful for from Liz.
Mm-hmm. Thanks,
hoodies,
Liz.
mugs. I got rid of the phone cases.
Okay.
Hanging posters.
Yes.
Like drapery posters. They're really interesting. Anything you can expect, buy from there. All right, let's go to the fanfic reading now. Here is Gone by Terri Botta, chapter 46. Upon returning to the magic box, Spike found Willow finishing up the repairs on the Buffy bot. There, she's good to go, the young witch said, closing the back flap on the robot with a satisfying grin. Good work, Red. We've got the clothes. Buffy, you and Glinda play dress up. I need to talk to Red here, He replied, taking Willow's arm. Okay, she agreed, allowing him to pull her aside. What is it? She asked when they were in the training room. When you were in my head, did you see anything about the mojo you did on Glory? Willow shook her head. No, not really. Spike sighed. Okay. There was the thing you did with Glory. It weakened her for a bit. Oh, what did I do? He tried to remember. Well, you were trying to help Glinda, you see. You've been charting the essences of the blokes. She'd turn crazy. You'd figure out a way to reverse what had been done to him. Willow looked worriedly at the closed training room door. I did? Wow. But Spike, whatever I did, I must have spent days researching how to do it. This time you saved Tara. She didn't get brain sucked, so I have no reason to try and reverse what Glory did to her. Spike nodded. Yeah. And you also wouldn't have used Mojo on her before, because she won't be ready for some of the things you throw at her tonight. Might have the same effect. Willow nodded nervously and swallowed. Okay. Use the dark magic book. Those spells will work. I heard Buffy talking about how you were the only one who ever slowed the hell bitch down. I was? Yeah, she called you her big gun, he said with a wry smile. Gun? Oh, Spike, I'm not anyone's gun. He put both hands on her shoulders in an attempt to calm her down. Don't go Willy on us now, Red. We need you. She put a resolved face on. I won't. That's more like it. He gave her shoulders a squeeze before releasing them and moved to open the door. Willow's small voice stopped him. Spike? Yeah, Red. Did I really turn evil and hurt people? He hung his head and sighed. I didn't see it. Only heard about it from Lurky while I was recuperating from what he did to me. Never saw you kill that Warren bloke. But he was a right wanker. I met with him the first time. He was a real bastard to you a lot later. I know he hurt Buffy and Tara, so I wasn't sad to see him go. Still, you've been steadily growing in your powers in the years I've known you. You're no scared, limp-wristed Sabrina wannabe. You're a powerful witch. But power can corrupt. Seduces you if you're not careful. He looked back at her. It's what happened to you, Red. You let it seduce you. Started dabbling in things that you weren't ready for. That's why you went to the dark side. Now you know what can happen. And you can avoid it. You just have to remember that With magic, there's always a consequence. Always. And we gotta go. Don't need saving before we get a hell bitch to kill. Willow nodded, taking in his words, and then gave him a brave smile. Right behind you. He gave her a nod and a smile, and then opened the training room door and walked out into the main store. The others were expectantly waiting for them. Bot's ready, Buffy said. He nodded and moved to pick up the Gruthlak battle axe from the pile of weapons. Mind if I use this? He asked. Buffy shook her head, a small smile on her lips. Go right ahead. He hefted the axe and spun it in his hand as Buffy turned to Giles. We on schedule? She asked. Yes, it's time, the Watcher confirmed. Okay, this is it, Spike. You lead the way. We'll follow. Everyone knows their jobs. Remember, the ritual starts, we all die. And I'll kill anyone who comes near Dawn. Spike swallowed and handed the weapons to Giles, who placed them in a bag. Well, not exactly the St. Crispin's Day speech, was it? He commented. We few, Giles said in sardonic agreement. We happy few, they said together. We band of buggard, Spike finished, setting his jaw and leading the way out. They were silent as they wound their way through the quiet pre-dawn streets. For Spike, every step he took brought him closer to his doom. Despite Willow's steadfast belief in him, he still held an unspoken terror that this attempt to change the future would fare no better than his others. He tried not to show it, however. He needed to be strong and confident. If he wasn't, he knew there was no hope for Dawn or Buffy or any of them. How you doing on those spells, Red? He asked as they neared the construction site. He had heard Willow going over the spells, and she took from the Book of Dark Magic, memorizing the words as Tara guided her. I've got a couple already. All we need is to slow her down long enough for the critical time to pass. Remember, Willow first, then the bot with the Dagon sphere. Then I get her with the troll hammer, Buffy added. And we're to take care of any minions, Anya piped up, gripping her baseball bat tightly in her hand. It was enough, wasn't it? Spike was thinking frantically. It had to be enough. Doc was dead, so there would be no one to cut Dawn if Buffy succeeded in keeping Glory occupied until after the time was up. She did it before. Glory never got to Dawn. It was the Doc who cut Niblet. They cleared the building and arrived at the site, the rickety tower looming above them like a grotesque, poorly formed insect. At the base of the tower, a good number of Glory's brain-sucked victims and her robed minions guarded the staircase. Spike remembered from before that hitting the loonies would cause his chip to fire. He could hit the minions, though. His hand gripped the smooth handle of the battle axe in anticipation. We're here, he said, clenching his fists tightly as he spied the small figure of Dawn at the top of the structure. Buffy looked to where Spike was staring and saw her sister. Dawn. Spadoinkle, Xander breathed. What is that? Anya asked. The portal must open up there, Giles observed, looking askance at Spike, who nodded once, his eyes riveted on the empty spot. Xander cast about and spied the wrecking crane. Hey, check that out. I think I can work with that, he said. Buffy saw what he was referring to and nodded. Give it a shot. See you guys in there, the young man told them and headed for the crane. Where's Glory? Buffy asked, looking around. Spike pointed out the auburn-haired woman, surveying the crew's handiwork. Over there. Buffy looked to where Spike was pointing and nodded. Okay, Willow, you're up, Buffy announced. Willow swallowed and nodded. Buffy left her with Tara and took the Buffy bot to the other side of the site where she could approach from the rear. The witch looked to Spike and Giles. Use the binding spell first, then back it up with a heavy-hitting blast. We need to weaken her if we can, Giles instructed. Oh, okay, I'll try, she promised, looking at Tara for reassurance. You can do this, Red, Spike encouraged. She looked at him and drew herself up, a timid bookworm being replaced by the confident spellcaster that she was. So can you, Spike. Remember, Nothing is written in stone. I'll keep that in mind, Red. She gave him one more look, then turned and walked away from them. She stopped a few paces away from where Glory was standing, then took a deep breath and cast the binding spell. Kali, Hera, Kronos, Tonic, she incanted, her hands held out. The surge of power was noticed by the minions, and a number of them ran for cover. Air like nectar, thick as onyx. Cassiel by your second star. What the hell is going on here? Glory demanded, coming over to see what was happening. Oh, it's one of the Slayer's little girlfriends. That's so cute. Hold mine victim, as in tar, Willow finished. Glory tried to step forward, but found herself caught in the spell. She pushed forward, but wasn't able to make any progress. Enraged, she snarled like a trapped animal. Willow, I think now would be a good time for that blast, Terra said nervously. Terra, pardon me. Yeah, Willow agreed, aiming her 10 fingers straight at Glory. I give you pain. On the word pain, Willow's eyes turned black and empty, and a wave of dark power engulfed Glory. The Hell God did something none of them had ever seen before. She screamed. The scream only lasted a few moments, however, before Glory gathered her strength and broke the binding. Is that it? Is that the best you can do, witch bitch? Glory mocked. A leather bag at Willow's feet unraveled, and a host of knives came floating up, all aimed at the Hell God. Bag of knives, Willow intoned, and the knives went flying towards Glory. Glory stood her ground and batted the knives away faster than the human eye could follow. Well, that was fun, but really not worth my time, Glory taunted. Then her eyes strayed to Terra, who was behind Willow, and a sadistic smile came to her lips. Sucking on your girlfriend's mind. Now that might be worthwhile. Terra, Willow cried, panic seizing her. No. Glory moved forward, intent on attacking Terra, and Willow reacted without thinking. When Glory moved to bat her aside, she tapped into the well of dark magic she had delved into for the spells, and rounded on the Hell God, shoving her fingers into Glory's head. Both Willow and Glory screamed as a burst of white energy came pouring out of the god's head and up Willow's arms. The blast backlashed, and all 3 women were sent flying. Willow and Terra smashed into a wall and landed unconscious. Glory, however, was back on her feet in a few seconds, albeit quite shaken and disturbed. Her minions gathered around her worriedly. What the frickin' hell did that bitch do to me? Glory yelled. You look fine, truly, a minion assured her. Stylish and affordable. Or, another added. Glory staggered. She made a hole. God, I need a meal. I need a brain to eat. Take mine, oh groove-tastic one, the first minion offered. I said a brain, you worthless dirt. I got places to be, big day, but need a brain, Glory growled, turning slowly and spying what she thought was the Slayer. Suppose I could always use yours. The Buffy bot, dressed as Buffy, responded coolly. Come and get it. The 2 eyed each other. The Buffy bot took a circling step. Glory watched her with disdain. Glory took a step as well, but it was a tad unsteady. You don't seem very well. Need to lie down and have a tonic, the bot asked reasonably. Your little witch bitch gave me a hell of a headache, and all it did to her was kill her and her girlfriend, so kudos. But if you think this is going to last more than 8 seconds, I notice that you're talking, whereas in your position, I would attack me. Oh, most sweaty, naughty feelings causing one. Should we? A minion began, but Glory cut him off. Guard the girl. I can take care of hairdo here. This is a diversionary tactic, the minion offered. Go, guard, Glory commanded. Obeying, the minions spread out around the stairway area. You keep saying I'm nothing. I'm still not feeling very attacked by you. It's strange, the Buffy bot went on. Glory moved towards her, then hesitated. Confusion crossed her face as she tried to walk ahead, but could do so only with effort. You're not as blurry with the usual speed, either, the bot nodded. The witch. The bot shook her head. It's not her. She produced the Dagon sphere from behind her back. It might be this, though. Glory snarled at the sight of it. I heard it was supposed to repel you, so my guess is you probably shouldn't touch it. She tossed it to Glory, who instinctively caught it. Energy rippled from it, causing her to convulse with agony. A scream welled up inside her, and Glory crushed the sphere in her hand. Looking down, breathing hard, she looked up with murderous hate. You're gonna wish, Glory began, murderous hate in her eyes. Buffy's fist flew right across her jaw, sending her crashing to the ground. She rebounded up, only to be knocked back by a flurry of blows and kicks. At first, she barely fended them off. Then she started to get her own back, landing a couple of good blows. As the women fought, the minions gathered the crazies to guard the stairway. Stand fast. Kill anyone who dares approach. This is our day of glory, one said proudly. Well punned, another complimented. Well, it just called out to me, the first answered, then toppled over when an arrow struck him in the chest. Suddenly, Giles, Spike, and Anya all charged the group. Anya, wielding her baseball bat, waded through the crazies with a warrior yell while with Giles by her side. The Watcher had a sword, but he used it defensively against the crazies, saving his killing thrusts for the minions. Spike, swinging the battle axe high over his head, did as he had done before and jumped clear over the line of humans to land among the minions. He attacked with ferociousness, all snarls and fury, determined not to fall this time around. But just as had happened before, he accidentally decked a human in his fighting fervor. His chip activated and he clutched his head in pain, allowing a minion to knock him to the ground. From their sprawled positions on the ground, Willow woke and put a hand on her throbbing head. She looked around nervously, finally seeing Tara lying not far from her. Ignoring her pain, she crawled over to her lover and shook her urgently. Tara? Tara! Tara blinked awake and looked around her in dazed confusion. Willow? She asked weakly. Tara, you're all right. Tara nodded. What happened? Glory was going to suck your brain. I stopped her. I think I kind of overreacted a bit. Better too much than too little, Tara said. Go overkill. Yay! Think it was enough? The two looked to see Glory fighting with the Buffy bot. I don't know, Tara answered. Willow looked at the scene before her. Glory batting the robot, the real Buffy waiting in the wings with the troll hammer. Dawn held captive at the top of the scaffold. Spike, Anya, and Giles beaten back behind a pile of rubble and kept there by minions and brain-sucked crazies. History's repeating itself, she whispered. Then she saw Glory knock the head off the robot and the real Buffy step up to nail her with the hammer. I can only hope Spike has the courage to do what he has to do. Oh my God, Jack, we did it.
Yeah, we're back. We're back. We'll see how this lasts. But for right now,